Ghana has become one of the major destinations for global secondhand clothing. Millions of garments come to this market every single week, and a significant percentage of this clothing are unsellable. So then traders have to absorb the financial loss because everything that comes into the country is not free. We pay for everything, whether it's unsellable, sellable, whether it's trash. The traders bear the cost.
Welcome to the We Need to Act, the podcast about the people, ideas, and movements shaping a better now. I'm Sarah, your host, an academic and sustainability professional who believes that understanding the world is the first step to changing it. Each episode, I sit down with extraordinary guests from around the world, scientists, activists, indigenous leaders, entrepreneurs, and thinkers who are doing the work and leaving the change. My guest today is Yayra Agbofah, activist, entrepreneur, and founder of The Revival, and one of Time Magazine's 100 Most Influential Climate Leaders of 2025. Yayra grew up working as a second-hand clothing trader at Kantamanto Market, one of the largest second-hand garment markets in Africa, where over 30,000 retailers trade used clothing every week. He saw firsthand what happens to the millions of items that don't sell: unsanctioned dumps, polluted rivers, beaches covered in discarded clothes. In 2018, he decided to do something about it. He founded The Revival as an upcycling initiative, repairing and redirecting low-quality and damaged garments that would otherwise end up in landfill. So thank you, Yayra, for joining us on the We Need to Act podcast. It is a great honor to have you with us. And I want to start with a question. You are trying to transform one of the most polluting industries and perhaps one of the most challenging to transform, which is the fashion industry. And you have consistently stood against business models that promote inequality, overconsumption, and pollution. And we want to know what led you to walk this path.
Well, for me, the journey started from, witnessing the realities in Kantamanto Market. Growing up as a child in Ghana, I saw firsthand how millions of garments arrive in the market every single week and how communities are left to manage the consequences of the global overproduction. So with many people in the global north seeing this as donation or reuse, which often arrives here as waste, and that burden falls on us within the market, who are the traders, the tailors, the headquarters, and the environment as well. So then the more I understood, the more I realized that this was not just a sustainability issue, but it's actually also a question of inequality and responsibility, where, fashion has been built on extraction for a very long time. Extraction, which is extraction of labor, extraction of resources, and now in the capacity of countries like Ghana to absorb waste, to deal with the results of the broken fashion system. So I chose this path because I felt it was important to challenge the narrative and also show that communities like Kantamanto are not just victims of the broken fashion system, but actually are spaces of innovation, spaces of resilience and creativity, where, people here have been practicing circularity for a long time before it became a global trend, before sustainability became a marketing word. Yeah, and also to create the impression from a practical perspective that there's so much knowledge that has been developed from an informal sector that the world can learn from.
Yeah. And were you already passionate about fashion when you started?
I was passionate. I love fashion. Yeah, I was. From childhood, I'm very passionate about fashion. It was passed down to me by my older siblings. I was inspired by my older siblings. Yeah.
Okay. And you mentioned something which is important, which is the current economic system that we have that is based on inequality and exploitation, and the waste that you mentioned, that developed nations export their waste to developing nations. And that should be a crime in my point of view. And it also reveals colonial patterns from the global north to the global south. How has Ghana been impacted by this issue, and has the country taken any measures to address it?
No, the impact is obvious. You see it. But I mean, Ghana has become one of the major destinations for global secondhand clothing. Like I mentioned earlier on, millions of garments come to this market every single week, and a significant percentage of this clothing are unsellable. So then traders have to absorb the financial loss because everything that comes into the country is not free. We pay for everything, whether it's unsellable, sellable, whether it's trash, the traders bear the cost. So it's not only us being a dumping ground, but we're also paying for the trash, which doesn't make absolute sense. On the other hand, the environment also is having a significant impact. Our waterways are being polluted, landfills are overflowing, our rivers, the ocean is struggling because we don't have the right resources to deal with textile waste. Hence, when we throw it anywhere, throw it in landfill, throw it in the ocean, beaches, and in the communities. So in what makes it especially difficult is that many of these garments were never designed to last in the first place. I mean, and fast fashion has escalated. Now we have ultra fast fashion, and it's accelerated by the production of low quality clothing in countries, and countries like Ghana are left to deal with the end of life of products we didn't produce. But at the same time, we're also responding in interesting ways where there is a growing conversation about circularity, waste management, and local innovation. So, I mean, communities themselves are creating solutions through repair, through resale, through upcycling, and recycling infrastructure that are emerging.
And do you have any support from the government? I mean, besides the community-led initiatives and the bottom-up approach that you are doing?
To be honest, there hasn't been much involvement in the government. From an action perspective, there hasn't been much action taken in government yet.
Of course, this is really important what you are doing because you are pushing the circular economy, circular initiatives, and it's really important because soon, hopefully, the government will see that it needs to put in place regulation that covers these issues. And you are the founder and creative director of The Revival, a community-driven sustainable fashion initiative. That's why we are here to discuss about this project, a really beautiful project that focuses on tackling textile waste through upcycling, as you mentioned, education, which is really important, and job creation. And what inspired you to create it? Well, you mentioned already you grew up with this issue.
I mean, to be honest, if I tell you that I had a laid out plan on creating the revival, I would be lying. I just acted out of urgency because I was encountering a problem. It was just not only me. Hundreds of thousands of people were also encountering the same problems. Out of urgency, I started doing something without knowing and being aware that I'm creating something revolutionary. So, I mean, so as time goes on, I went to carved what revival was really born for. So revival was born from seeing both the problem and the potential within Kantamanto Market. You know, I saw enormous creativity in the market. You know, tailors transforming discarded garments, traders extending the life of young people finding ways to survive through creativity. But also saw how invisible these efforts were in the rest of the world. And I wanted to create something that not only addresses textile waste, but also created an opportunity for the people who are most affected by it. So, I mean, the revival, we work with young creatives, traders, and vulnerable communities to transform waste into opportunity, into product, but also into education, storytelling, new possibilities. So for me, it has always been dignity over charity. We're not to save communities, but we're trying to build together with them. That is why the revival is community driven and community led.
Empowering communities. And how was the reaction of the community when you first started?
It was first, they didn't really understand what I was doing and what I was trying to put across. One is because the approach wasn't me bringing something, the approach was us doing something together. And this wasn't, I didn't reinvent the wheel or bring something totally new. It was just amplifying something that was happening already. So it was very organic for them that they gravitated to it organically and got to see the excitement around it. You got to understand and feel, because there was one instance that they brought me waste, and I told them, wait, give me just hold on a few, like an hour, stay here and watch how I transform this waste into something really cool. And the traders were amazed by the way we transformed something that they would otherwise see as waste into something cool, and gave it to them. We made a bag and gave it to them. And she's been using the bag for the last 2 years. And she always talks about it because she was involved in the process. Another typical example is how we're using the waste to create protective uniforms for farmers who didn't have protective uniform. And this is a beautiful way to use waste, and change the narrative of waste into something that is of value, is of opportunity, and it's supporting livelihoods.
Yes, you were right. And this process of co-creation is really important to empower people. And also by seeing you, engaging people in the process and seeing how you do it, they can also change their perception regarding the secondhand materials. For at least here in this part of the world, there are still a lot of people that look to secondhand as something inferior with less quality. Right. And you are showing that you can really transform waste in something that is valuable to many people.
Yeah, exactly.
And did you have to learn any skills to do it?
It was organic. I organically grew into it. Yeah, I mean, it's a learning process. So I learned. I had to learn organically within the market while we were making progress. Learning. I'm still learning. I'm still learning as we speak.
It's a learning process. This is a sustainability education podcast. And so we are particularly interested in understanding the educational side of the revival, because we need to educate people to reduce their levels of consumption in general and to adopt more circular ways of living. How do you create awareness and promote sustainability education among young people?
Well, I mean, education is a very, very important part of our work, because sustainability cannot remain a conversation amongst experts or institutions. I think young people need to see themselves within it as well. So, I mean, we approach education through creativity and participation, from a practical perspective, because education without practice is useless. So we organize workshops, we organize upcycling sessions, storytelling projects, market tours, hands-on learning experiences that connect to environmental issues and then to the people who are living the daily reality. Since 2022, we've been developing online courses, free online courses that people from a global perspective can have access to it and learn from the knowledge we have been able to collect locally and apply it, because I think education is at the core of the problem. If the education system educated the fashion designers and the people within the ecosystem of the fashion industry to do things better, we wouldn't be having conversations about textile waste and its effect on climate change. But because the education system has led us to where we are, we have to use the same education to unlearn and then relearn the right way to do things. So education is very key to us. And one thing that is important for us is making sustainability feel accessible and culturally relevant, because sustainability, even the word on its own, it's a big word. It makes it look, and it's become a marketing tool rather than it being actually a lifestyle. So we break it down to make it sustainability feel that it's an everyday thing and everyone can be sustainable. There is no formula to it. Literally, because sustainability is two words: sustain and ability, which is literally the ability to sustain. So then it shouldn't have a one-way formula that sustainability processes in Portugal should be applied to it in Ghana. It wouldn't work because our ecosystems are different. Our lifestyle are different. So then having to make it feel accessible from where you are, what you have, what's around you, and your lifestyle, and also making it culturally relevant. So instead of presenting it as something, like I said earlier, important or imported or elitist, we try to show that many African communities have always practiced forms of circularity through repair, reuse, resourcefulness. We pass on clothes. I've inherited my dad's clothes, my older siblings' clothes. And then one other thing, we also use film, we also use design and visual storytelling to help young people understand the larger system behind fashion and consumption.
That's right. And we used to do that here in like 40 years ago, 30 years ago, before the fast fashion started, that we pass on the clothing to our siblings and then the overconsumption and the profits took over. That's a huge problem.
The business model of the fashion industry is profit over everything, which is
Yeah.
leading us straight, which is gotten us to where we are now.
That's right. Not only in fashion, but in general.
Exactly.
And how do you envision the future of fashion?
The future of fashion. I believe the future of fashion, well, I believe there's a future, but I believe the future of fashion has to move from endless growth and constant overproduction. I think that's the first step, that the business model of the fashion system has to change, where profit over everything has to stop, and it has to transition to planet and people over before profit. Within the fashion system, in business model of fashion should change. For too long, the industry has measured success through volumes, through speed, and through newness. But we are reaching the limit of that model environmentally, socially, and economically. We see the repercussions of that. So, I mean, the future I imagine is more localized, is more slower and more responsible and accountable. A future where garments are designed to last longer, where repair and reuse becomes normal again. 3-4 decades ago, repair was normal. Passing on clothes was normal. But yeah, I see a future where it becomes normal again because it stopped because of fast fashion. And also where communities that already sustain circular systems are recognized and invested in. I also think the future of fashion needs to become more honest and transparent. We cannot continue speaking about sustainability while producing billions of excess garments every year. It doesn't make sense. Real change will require both cultural and structural transformation. So yes, I envision a future where there is going to be a total restructure of the business model of the fashion industry, where the actions are taken from the core, which is from the start, which is from the farm, the production of the raw material. I mean, if you ask me one thing I want, one of them would be abolishing synthetic material. Let's stop producing synthetic material because synthetic material is a driving force of fast fashion.
Right. And it with huge impact to our health and to help all the ecosystems. And
exactly.
Yeah, you were right. And sustainability is something contextual, but as you were mentioning, I was recalling a past guest. I had a cultural leader from Hawaii, Kimokeo Kapahulehua, and he was telling me, today we are talking about sustainability. In the past, it was life.
Exactly.
We need to go back to relearn how to live again, because this is not natural. We don't need the amount of garments we have nowadays. We don't need to follow trends, but to have long-lasting clothes. And this has been a really interesting conversation. Do you have a final message or call to action you would like to share with our listeners?
Of course. I mean, this is very important to me, that always, action without words, without action is useless. So, I mean, I'm always keen on talking about or sharing call to action. I mean, I will encourage people to look beyond fashion as just an aesthetic or trend, and start thinking about fashion, on the fashion system and people behind what we wear. Every garment has a journey, and often the final chapters of that journey remain invisible to consumers. Places like to reveal those hidden reality. But I also want people to understand that hope exists. Even within the broken system, communities continue to create solutions and extending value, and also imagining alternatives. So the question is whether the global industry is willing to listen, responsibility, and invest in those realities instead of simply extracting from them. So what I want to say is that I always think, when you are living life, when you are consuming, you always think about where is this garment going to end up? Where is this product going to end up? Because whatever you do at one part of the planet affects some other part of the planet. If you consume more, we have to deal with more in Ghana. If you buy a lot of fast fashion and keep throwing them away, we will have to deal with them. And that is not fair. So we have to have the mindset of living on a planet where we all have a responsibility to take care of our planet. As a citizen of the earth, one of our main priorities should be our responsibility to take care of our planet. So in your own small way, there's no effort too small. The fact that you take conscious decisions and responsible decisions when you're consuming, it's a great thing you're doing. I think what we should keep by the back of our minds that this planet is all we have, and we have to take care of it and of her. We also will not live on this planet forever. We need to think about the next generation. Is that supposed to come? Are we? Do we want to live this planet in shambles for the next generation, or we want to be able to take care of the planet so the next generation can also inherit a planet that is well taken care of, that is thriving, and that is progressive. We have messed up and our relationship with nature. That is why we're having. We see the results of climate change, disasters all over the place. It's because nature is telling us, no, you guys are not doing something right, and you need to change it. Moreover, we are part of nature, but we've taken us out of nature thinking that we're more superior and that we do anything we want. No, let's go back to nature and repair the relationship we have with nature. Then you see that nature will thrive. It's not too late. Nature heals herself. So then, if we're able to make this now, we'll be able to heal nature again and have the environment prosper, so we can have a sustainable future for generations.
That's right. And we have to first heal our relationship with nature so we can be supported and heal nature. Thank you so much for your time. It was a great honor to speak with you and to have you on this podcast.
My pleasure.